Hey everybody, Ryan here at etrailer. Today on our 2017 Ford Focus, we're going to be showing you how to install the Roadmaster Automatic Battery Disconnect switch. But before we get into that, why don't we just take a minute, check this out, and make sure it's going to work for you. What this kit is going to allow you to do is to easily disconnect and reconnect the battery and power on your Focus. And you need to do that because with the Focus, at least in our case, with the automatic transmission, Ford wants you to disconnect the battery whenever you're flat towing. And that don't sound too bad at first, but having to remember to disconnect it every time and get your tools out and pop the hood and go, remove it, remove your terminal, and then doing that whenever you're ready to take your car out for a spin, that could get old real quick. And so this is definitely going to simplify things and really speed that process up. Switch is just going to be a button that you push to turn the power off and on, and I mounted ours next to our braking system controller. That way everything's kind of in the same spot, and you don't have to kind of walk around your whole car doing stuff. But right now we have the power on, just like you would if you're going to be driving the car. So just hit our horn so we have power. If you push it, it'll shut power off, and if I go to push the horn, we get nothing, no power anywhere. So it's just that easy to disconnect it. And when you're ready to go again, push that button. Usually give the car a couple seconds to kind of think and wake up, and you'll have full power again. Underneath the hood, this is how I have ours set up. And the kit essentially, it's going to have this heavy duty solenoid that is going to interrupt your battery flow, allowing you to power it on and turn it off. It's going to do that by having one wire get connected to the original battery cable that went to your positive battery terminal, and then the other wire will get bolted up to your positive battery terminal. And that's how it's going to accomplish being able to turn that off and on. Now with the Focus, I had to add a couple things. I got a different style terminal here that allowed me just to kind of bolt our cable right to it. And we carry ones very similar to this that'll do the same thing. And I changed up the end on the existing cable to give it a cleaner look and make it a little easier to bolt up, which again, you can grab these parts right here at etrailer, which kind of brings me to my next point. The installation on this really isn't too bad, especially if you're going to be doing it at the same time as your other components. You can kind of get away with routing some of the wires at the same time and just thinking things through. But honestly, you set this up once and you get that convenience of just having to push the button to turn everything off and on. It's really a no-brainer for me. I feel like this would essentially eliminate, the possibility of forgetting to unhook, or forgetting, to disconnect the battery and hook it back up. And I feel like, honestly, it could just prevent a costly mistake, something that gets overlooked. So, it should really help streamline and smooth over your flat towing experience whenever you're setting up and disconnecting, because I know that can be stressful and a lot to some people. So with that said, why don't we go ahead, pull into the garage, and get started on it now. To begin our installation, you're going to want to open up your hood, and the first thing that we're going to need to do is mount up our solenoid, which we're going to do back here in this area. So I got this mounted up. I just use the self-tapping screws to secure it to this little flange that drops down. Do it pretty much all the way over towards the driver's side too, because our big, the thick red cables are going to have to reach the battery. So keep that in mind. Pretty straightforward, nothing to it there. There's going to be a white wire coming off of the solenoid that we're going to need to ground, so we'll go ahead and prep that. For our white wire, what you're going to do is strip back the end of the insulation, give it a good twist, and you can take a ring terminal, slide that over the bare end of the wire, and crimp it down. And this is going to get attached to this metal flange. I'm probably going to use this self-tapping screw to secure it right there. So just take your self-tapper, put it through the ring terminal, and tighten it down. For the thick red cables, we can get them hooked up. So one will be labeled battery post. I have that running over and attached to our battery post there. Now, originally the car is going to have this cable with this post on there. You're almost going to have to change, at the very least, this, because our cable can get hooked up to this side for our solenoid. So we do offer posts similar to these that you can pick up right here to let you bolt that up. And then with our one labeled battery cable, you can put the red heat shrink over it. They give you this sleeve here. And I opted to change my end out. We do carry these as well. This is a 2-gauge terminal. But with that said, you know, you could always leave this on there, take this nut off and bolt the cable to it. But I just opted for this because it's a little bit cleaner. So I will grab our hardware and we can get this bolted together. So I do give you some hardware. Take the bolt, star washer, put that on our other ring terminal there from our battery. Star washer on the bottom, and then a nut. Go ahead and kind of straighten this out, and use 2 1/2-inch or 13-millimeter sockets to tighten this up. That tubing that we put over this is actually heat shrink tubing. So what you can do is slide it over all that bare metal that was exposed, come back with a heat gun and seal it up. Moving back to the solenoid, there's going to be a fuse holder coming off of it. Make sure that fuse is not installed. We'll do that at the very end. But that fuse holder will turn into a gray wire. So that gray wire is going to run inside. So it comes out and kind of drops down and towards the passenger side. So I just have it loosely ran now. Once I'm done with all of our flat toe stuff, I'll come back clean it up. But that's going to go up through the firewall, through a grommet that's there, which is a lot easier to see from the inside. So we'll go in there and check it out. Inside, here's that grommet that I used. And if you don't have a hole in it already from your other flat toe stuff, you're gonna have to make one. Just very carefully poke a hole in it. You know, you don't want to nick any of the other factory wires. But I pushed it through and then started to route it towards our center console. So it kind of goes over and comes down through an opening in our panel. Here's where our wire comes out, and actually we'll take a look at the back side of the panel and get our switch hooked up. So I just popped this panel off to make it easier to see. So what's going to be there is this little cover, and you can just unsnap that with a screwdriver. And I drilled a hole in the top of it so we could push our wire down through there. And our wire is going to get hooked up to the switch. So what I did on this little panel, you know, I drilled a hole where, you know, this opening is. And so I drilled a hole just big enough to push a switch through the back or through it. And then on the back of it, they give you a nut. You can just tighten that down by hand or just grab a 3/4 inch socket and snug it down. Don't have to get crazy. But our wires are going to hook up to the back of it. So we'll remove some of the sheathing here. Just very carefully kind of cut in between it. Then we'll strip these wires back a little ways. Give them that twist. Then on our switch, we got 2 little Phillips head screws. Back them out, but try not to pull them all the way out because they're kind of a pain if you drop one. Find. And our wires are going to get hooked up to them. So it don't matter what color wire goes where as long as you got them both hooked up to the switch. Push it through. And snug it down. Same thing for this one. Moving back to our fuse holder, you can take the included 7.5 amp fuse, place that in, and now we can test this to make sure it's working. We'll check everything. So right now we have our lights on, the logo on our radio, our screen is going, so we know we have power. If I push a button, that stuff should turn off. You heard our solenoid click, the lights, the radio, everything turned off immediately, so we know it's turning it off. Push a button again, make sure it powers everything up, which it is. Our lights come on, screen turns on, and everything else, so we know it is functioning properly. And that'll finish up our look at and our installation of the Roadmaster Automatic Battery Disconnect switch on our 2017 Ford Focus.